So hello everyone, and thanks for joining our little webinar we have here on Generation Y, or also called the Millennial Generation. Millennials, or Gen Y, were born in the 1980s until the mid-90s, and it's the new consumer for all of us. So it's pretty important to know what drives them and how different they are compared to other generations. I'm Joeri, by the way. Unfortunately, I'm not a Gen Y guy myself. I was born in the early 70s, and so I'm a true type Gen Xer. But I was involved with studying Generation Y or Millennials since almost 20 years ago, when they were still kids, first as an academic researcher, and since 15 years also as one of the co-founders and managing partners of InSites Consulting. I also wrote a book on the generation called How Cool Brands Stay Hot, Branding to Generation Y, published by Kogan Page. And the idea of today's webinar, or actually my part, is to summarize some points of the book in only 30 minutes. So welcome again to this webinar. If you're interested in millennial content and Generation Y studies and research, not only of InSites Consulting, but also other things we collect, it might be a good idea to follow me on Twitter as well. I tend to distribute ideas, new research, and the things I see on millennials on my own Twitter account. So that far for the commercial break between the introduction and the content of this webinar. So one of the questions I get a lot when I do workshops, in-company workshops, presentation and conferences or webinars is, are they really different? Because many people still think they're young. Me as a Gen Xer, I still feel young. There's a reason why I like to do studies among youth, but also the baby boomers, the parents of Generation Y, well, they can be typically defined as one generation that will always feel as the ultimate young generation. So to them, and many of them are CMOs, there's nothing special about being young, so they shouldn't adapt their strategy to this generation. To convince them, I use some examples, some case studies, and Forever 21 is a good study or a good illustration of how different this generation is. You all know Forever 21, US-based in California, West Coast, owned by a South Korean family, family Chang, and actually run by Mom Chang together with her two millennial-aged daughters. What is typical about Forever 21 is that every time they open a new store, millennials get quite excited, and this is one of the pictures when they opened the first store in Europe, where more than 1,000 millennials was waiting outside to get inside. It's a bit like Apple would announce a new iPad or a new iPhone, the same type of reactions among millennials. Now, Forever 21 is just a fashion discounter, you could say, like many others, H&M and other discounters. So what is really driving this interest of millennials? Actually, to me, I think it's basically all about the fact that Mom Chang, Chang, sorry, actually understood that there's one typical characteristic about the generation. They're all addicted to novelties. They want to see new stuff all the time. And what she's doing in her Forever 21 stores is she's changing the collection on a daily basis, really on a daily basis, because she understands if she wouldn't do that, that she would lose the attention span or lose the interest of millennials today. So even if items are selling well, she will take them out and bring in new items, new trendy items she saw on catwalks the next few days. It actually means, if you translate it to other industries, that everyone involved with marketing and advertising to millennials should add some drama to their strategies. And this is a screenshot of a famous viral YouTube movie that you can find on YouTube when you look for TNT push to add drama. You will see that they actually created some real good viral stuff by adding extra storylines, by actually doing something that surprises this generation. It's not only in videos or in advertising, it's also the case when you would think of, for instance, doing a sampling action. Wrigley is a chewing gum brand related to the Mars family company. And what I did when they introduced a new flavor was, instead of just distributing like 2 pieces of free chewing gum to people in high streets, they understood that many people, when driving in parkings, put a ticket inside their mouth because they need their hands to steer the wheel. So at the backside of the parking ticket, they added the new flavor of the chewing gum, surprising people, and actually a surprising sampling action that is out of the box and quite creative and gets the attention of the millennial consumer as well. Another characteristic of this generation is that they really like to be in charge. They want to be the boss, actually. And at InSites Consulting, I think almost 80% of our employees are part of this generation. We know from our experience, and I'm an employer, that it's really hard to keep them interested in their daily job. So job rotation and giving them actually power, allowing them to introduce their ideas into the management board is quite important. The same goes not only on HR aspects, but the same goes when you're marketing, when you're doing marketing to them. You have to give powers of your brand to this new consumer. That's something that they really embrace. So one of the answers to this, of course, in marketing was co-creation. Because in co-creation, you actually ask your consumers to create packaging, flavors, advertising, etc. And often it works, but it can go awfully wrong as well if it's a one-off action, because then millennials will feel, oh, it's just a tactique. They're just trying to sell me something by doing this co-creation. That's something that this British fashion retailer experienced in 2011. They asked their Facebook fans to become the new face, the new model for Next in 2011. What they hadn't expected was that this guy, Roland B, called Roland Buns, actually a computer geek from Belfast, he had the most votes among Facebook fans. He had 66,000 votes on Facebook, whereas the number 2 only had 89 votes. So Facebook fans of Next wanted Roland Buns to become the new face of Next, which was quite a challenge for Next, and in the end they actually didn't do it and chose someone else. So sometimes millennials will show you, hey, you're not going to trick us. It's not because you use our media that you will actually sell something to us. We are in charge, and we will show you who's actually the boss of your marketing if you think you can just use some commercial tricks. And then another aspect of this generation is their role models. We did a research with InSites Consulting in 16 countries across the globe and asked them, what are your role models? Who do you look up to? These 4 guys, familiar faces I can imagine, were not in the top 3. They were number 4, 5, 6, and 7. Number 1 was, oh, I look up to my own friends, just my peers. Number 2 was my own mom, and number 3 was my own dad. Significant difference between mom and dad, which is sad, I'm a dad myself, but dads in the audience, you still did better than Johnny Depp, because he was only number 4, so no worries about that. The immediate social circle, that's the real role model of Generation Y, which is not completely the same for Generation X. It also explained why this girl, who actually contributed to the success of Forever 21 in the United States, was able to create her own YouTube channel at the age of 15. This is Blair Fowler, also known as Juicy Star 07 on YouTube. She has more than 1 million people interested in her video content on her YouTube channel. And the only thing she's doing is she's creating this so-called haul videos. She's telling people, hey, I went to Forever 21 last week, and this skirt I bought, I think it's really cool. And that's the only thing she's doing. More than 1 million subscribers. Now, suppose you're Elle magazine or Vogue magazine or any fashion magazine, it will be very hard to create content that's compelling enough to find 1 million Gen Yers, 1 million millennials to subscribe to it. But a 15-year-old girl did it because, well, she could be like me. Not exactly like me. I'm a Gen Xer and a male also, but like them. It could be someone like a teenage millennial girl, actually, which as a result means that she's not speaking down to me. She's someone like me at the same level, and it's like the American dream. I could be that girl if I want. Well, that's what millennial girls would say. It also comes back to the power of conversations. The reason why social media are so important for this generation, it's not about technology. It's actually because the number one role models are their own friends. So they put more emphasis on what their own social circle is thinking about brands. Whereas Gen X would be more influenced by what celebrities are thinking. Gen Y or millennials are more influenced by what their friends are telling them. Not only online, by the way, social media, but also offline. We know from research that one millennial has 146 branded conversations a week with a peer, which means that they mention at least one brand in these 146 talks, chats, online and offline, together with their friends. It also means actually that if you're not part of the 146, you're actually not part of their lives. So your strategies should be aimed at creating one of these 146 conversations. One of the things they really like to talk about is about novelties, stimulation junkies, right? So technologies, new apps, new websites, new stuff, improvements of products, that's something that they really like. So it's also something that Scandinavian Airlines understood when they created this iPhone app. Scandinavian Airlines has been the most punctual European airline since ages, but instead of just creating advertising stating 98% of our flights is on time, they created this mobile app consisting of 4 different mobile games you can play if you're not flying Europe's most punctual airline. So actually creating a game, creating marketing for people using my competitor, which is quite a creative idea in marketing as well. So my book is on how to keep your brand hot, and it's actually based on brand storytelling research. We asked millennials across the globe to tell us what their favorite brand was in different categories. And then we did a text analysis on the brand stories that they wanted to share about their favorite brand. It was an open-ended question. Tell something about your favorite brand. We saw that when they were speaking about their favorite brands, or writing about their favorite brands actually, that there were 5 common denominators in all these favorite brand stories. And we used this acronym, the CRUSH acronym, as the backbone, the model of our book and also of our brand research. When brands are rated high on coolness, on realness or authenticity, on uniqueness, being different than my competitors, on self-identification, which means the brand mirrors, reflects my own passions, my own interests, my lifestyle, and when the brand is making me happy, creating positive emotions, we know that from a quantification of this study, and again, many markets across the world, that it will lead to more buzz, actually, to more brand conversations. It will also improve the brand image, and in the end, it will lead to brand leverage. Brand leverage was measured, among other things, on the Net Promoter Score, the extent to which you would recommend a brand to your friends and relatives, which is a good variable to check future market success. Now, this is the backbone of the book. I only have 16 minutes left, so 250 pages in half an hour. That's really a hard job. I will take out some examples, some illustrations. And the first chapter I would like to talk about is on authenticity, because I think it's really important to be a real brand. Now, theoretically, you could say the attributes of being an authentic brand are the following. There are 3 actually. The first one is the consumer belief that you're a quality leader. You're creating the best possible products by using the best possible ingredients and using the best possible procedures or processes in your factory. If people believe this, they think you're a quality leader and you will be more authentic, and actually people will buy your brand for that. But it's not enough, because if you think of Australian homemade ice cream, for instance, if you would buy Australian homemade ice cream in the US, most millennials will say, I think it's fake, because by the time it gets from Australia to up here, I think it's not really homemade, actually. It's just a trick. So I don't buy it. I don't believe it. And it's because it lacks the second dimension of brand authenticity, which is heritage. Heritage can be defined as a clear link with a certain time, a certain culture, a certain era, a certain region, or that type of stuff. That's brand heritage, and it's also important to being authentic. That's the reason why in scientific studies, people eating at ethnic restaurants will think that their plate is tasting much better when it's actually brought to the table by someone looking like the ethnic restaurant. So if you're eating at a Chinese restaurant, for instance, if the waitress is Chinese, you will feel that the same meal will taste better compared to the same meal offered to you on the table by just an ordinary guy that's not Chinese. Because it's all about perception, right? So you can influence the perception of authenticity and influence the heritage. I will come back to that later on. And then there's the third part, because heritage can be influenced. There's also sincerity, which is also, again, perception. Sincerity means that the people behind the brand are really there, are really aiming to be the best in their industry, which means they will do the extra mile actually to create the best products, to be the most innovative, to find the best possible ways to serve you as a client. This is a good example. This guy is actually Jack O'Neill. Jack O'Neill was the founder of the O'Neill surf and swimwear company. He was the inventor of the wetsuit, actually, which is quite important to the west coast of the US. And he lost his left eye actually when he was testing the leash. The leash is the cord between your surfboard and yourself when you're actually surfing, so that you don't lose your board when you fall off the board. He lost his eye when he was testing one of his products. Actually, the leash was launched by his son, Pat O'Neill. So that's a great story. It's storytelling, it's the history, it's the heritage of the brand, and it's also a good illustration of sincerity. I mean, if you're prepared to test your own products and lose a body part, it means that you're really sincere about serving your customers in the best way and finding innovations. Now, the crazy thing about this is that if you would use Jack O'Neill in advertising in commercials and tell the story about O'Neill, many millennials will say, I think that's just a scripted story. It's probably an ad agency that invented the story about Jack O'Neill. Whether it's true or not, most millennials will think when you use it in advertising, well, that's not credible. I don't believe it. It's not authentic. It's fake, which is quite weird because we also tested this brand, Häagen-Dazs, like you all know, is a US brand, but to many millennials, it is a Scandinavian brand or a Swiss ice cream brand. I'm not sure about the real region, but I think because of the A umlaut A and ZS digraphs that it's Scandinavian. And if you explain to them, no, this is only a foreign branding technique and it's a US brand, they still think it's a cool brand because they know it's a luxury ice cream, it's premium ice cream, it's expensive, and they like the idea that they were influenced by using this foreign branding technique. They think that's quite clever. It's intelligent, but because it's subtle. It's not like telling them in advertising that, hey, we are a Scandinavian ice cream brand. No, it's below the line, you could say. They see this Scandinavian thing inside, and I think it's a clever way to do marketing. And that's quite weird because we knew from our brand storytelling research that they admire honest brands that don't fake anything. And so if you would use Jack O'Neill in your advertising, they would say it's fake. And if you, which it's a totally true story, if you use Häagen-Dazs, which is completely fake, they say, okay, even if it's fake, I still think it's a cool brand. So that's a bit weird. So they lost me. And it's typical for millennials, Generation Y. Sometimes you lose their way of reasoning. But it comes back to this notion. That's it, Joeri. What you don't understand is that authenticity for us has nothing to do actually with history or with the heritage, because that's boring stuff, you know. It's something I learned at school. I'm more interested in how consistent you are in promoting your brand to me, because they're marketing savvy. And one thing they say is to be consistent, you just need to follow your image, your perception. That's the real key to be authentic. So you can be very authentic only if you're there on the market for 3 months, whereas you can be very unreal, unauthentic, even if you have 125 years of history. If you change your strategies, you change your positioning and your type of commercials, your tone of voice too often, and it's not related to your DNA, then they will say that's not credible, that's not authentic. So authenticity, to summarize, it's all about staying true to yourself, staying true to your own DNA. And sometimes it's something millennials tell me when I say, oh, you're so stubborn, you don't want to change your idea. Why is that? And they say, no, that's not the case. We are just honest to ourselves. We don't want to change our idea just because the boss thinks it's wrong, because then that wouldn't be honest at all. So to them, it's all about staying true to yourself, and they want the same thing from brands. This is a Spanish bank portal, CM Bank, created this entertainment portal, and they think, at least, that it looks cool. They've used cool green and orange colors and pink and red, etc. And they offer like ideas, suggestions for entertainment during the weekends. Reaction of millennials? I don't need a bank, a financial institution to tell me what's cool, to tell me where I should go to entertain myself, because a bank, financial institution, per definition, is not cool. It's not related to their DNA. What a bank should do is actually give me financial advice. And I do have a lot of financial questions. And I want to become rich. I want to save money. So why not focus on this type in a cool way, of course, but not pretend to be an entertainment portal, because there are many entertainment portals that have better content than any bank could ever deliver. So ING, for instance, as a bank, created a personal finance management tool that allows you to track your own expenses and offers you help in remembering to pay invoices. That's much cooler for millennials. It might look boring, but it's related to the DNA of the brand. So if you bring it in a good way, they will say, wow, that's really a cool tool. Last aspect about authenticity is honesty and transparency and openness, actually. I really like this Eastern European case of the WWF. In Hungary, you can donate 1% of your tax to a charity organization. It's kind of a tax shelter. So many organizations are printing many leaflets. Only if you're the WWF, you cannot print thousands of leaflets, because you're there to preserve the trees, the rainforest. So that would be really uncool, really unreal, actually. So they created the greenest leaflet campaign on earth. They printed just one leaflet, then went to the biggest mall in Hungary, Budapest, and 2 volunteers dressed up like a panda bear actually gave the leaflet. One took place at the bottom side of an escalator. They distributed the leaflet to people going 1 floor up, and the other panda bear was at the upper side of the escalator, recollecting the same leaflet and redistributing it to people going down with the escalator to the lower floor. In that way, they were able to create more than 280,000 contacts, not just in this one mall, of course, but also by creating a YouTube movie and distributing it on YouTube, reaching in that way other Hungarians as well. So being cool today is not about telling how you're cool, it's all about acting cool and then creating a story about what you did as a brand, not what you say to people. So some conclusions about authenticity. Keep true to your roots, but never shout them. Never use it in commercials, because then it's not credible. Millennials will think it's just scripted. A warm dimension like the WWF is quite important, even if you have nothing to do with charity. What are you doing for society, apart from just selling me stuff? And be open and transparent. And in the last 6 minutes, I would like to talk to you about this last chapter of my book on happiness, which is also quite important to millennials. What we saw actually in our studies was that millennials are more emotional than older generations. And in the brand stories, for instance, when they were talking about their favorite brands, 73% of the stories had at least one positive emotion, whereas only 29% in the brand stories about favorite brands mentioned product characteristics like packaging, variety, taste, flavors, that kind of stuff. Now, in one of the researches we did, we asked millennials, what are the days up till now that you will never forget about? And the second question was closed. And there we asked, okay, on that specific day, how would you attribute what you felt to one of the 6 basic human emotions? What we saw was that we received a lot of stories, open-ended, that were attributed by themselves, self-reported, to the emotion of happiness. Many of the stories were also related to sadness, which is the lack of happiness, actually, and only a few to surprise, anger, disgust, and fear. So happiness is, or the lack of happiness, is the core emotion when you address millennials. If you look at the type of stories, they all are related to achieving something in life. I met the love of my life, I became a sport champion, I had my first French kiss, I got my degree, I got my driver's license. So achievements in life. In positive psychology, they call this gratifications. Gratifications as opposed to short-term pleasures, which are related to the 5 senses. Gratifications are related to being challenged to achieve something. You need skills to achieve something. We give you feedback on how well you're doing, and in the end, you achieve something in life. To millennials, it's quite important because they are pre-wired. They were raised by their baby boomer parents to really study hard, work well, earn a lot of money, and achieve something in life. Many advertisers understood this, and even Nike, for instance, Nike used is still using these campaigns with like big stars and soccer players, like this one, to announce their new product launches. But on the other hand, they know that to really get the attention of these millennials, they should involve them, they should engage them by actually doing this type of contest. So last summer they did this Nike Challenge or the Chance campaign, in which they were looking for the best young soccer players across the world in 55 different countries. And amateur teams could nominate their best young player. In the end, the best players that were scouted by Nike people and also at test matches, of course, could compete with the best soccer players across the world. In only a few weeks' time, there were more than 150,000 young soccer players that were subscribed, registered specifically for this campaign. And this is all about achieving something in life, becoming a star and training together with the big stars, competing against the big stars. So instead of buying media space, paying for attention, buying GRPs around the Super Bowl, for instance, you're actually engaging people by trying to challenge them to achieve something and getting them to play to achieve something, also called gamification in marketing. And this is my last example. McDonald's in Germany created these big billboards at which you could scan a QR code. If you scan it with your iPhone or smartphone, it said, okay, now you get a discount to this ice cream, Sunday ice cream. But if you really want a big discount, you need to be fast. And you could, on Google Maps, you could see the shortest route to the nearest McDonald's. But the thing was, the longer it took you to get to the McDonald's, the less discount you get. So if you really want 50% off, you needed to run to McDonald's. If you only were slow, then you only got 20% off your ice cream. So it's a gamification even of a simple discount tactic. You can use it in every single aspect of your marketing. And millennials like it because it's a trophy generation. They like to achieve. That's how they are pre-wired. So my final conclusions. Happiness, it's all about delivering gratifications, not just short-term pleasures related to the 5 senses. How are your brands actually facilitating the fact that millennials can achieve in life? Never focus on negative emotions because Gen Y, millennials, it is a very positive generation. They tend to forget about the negative emotions. And happiness is all about connecting one millennial to another millennial in a playful way. They feel happy when they're related and connected to other millennials. So that's also one of the tasks of us marketers, is actually connecting them to each other and facilitating this. And how does our brand actually plays a role in connecting them with each other? So this was my part of the presentation. I will now hand over the control of the presentation and also the floor to my dear colleague, Giulia, who is working at our US office, and she will translate some of these findings into how we do research with millennials. Giulia, it's all yours.
Thank you, Joeri. Hi, everyone. So I'm Giulia. I'm indeed joining this webinar from our US office, where I am responsible for servicing our mainly CPG clients based in the US, both on quantitative and on qualitative projects. We run lots of different types of projects here, but what I'm really passionate about is all projects that have to do with communication strategies that help us activate and engage consumers, especially when these consumers are Gen Y consumers. And that brings me exactly to what I would like to talk to you and to share with you today. We are researchers who want to connect with Gen Y, and in this sense, we share a lot of challenges that different brands share when they want to connect with Gen Y as well. What types of challenges do we talk about? Well, we don't actually, we're not actually active in a business where we sell products or services. What we do is slightly different because we ask consumers to participate in research, which basically requires them to invest time and their brains to provide rich and valuable opinions. So in fact, one of the first challenges that we have is to be relevant, because if I have to choose where to put this time and where to put my brain, and I had to choose between filling out a survey or spending those same 15 minutes on Facebook looking at what my friends are doing all over the world, then let's be honest, it's very likely that I will go for the second option instead. So relevance is one of the first challenges we have. A second one is to make sure that we are where they are. And the third one is to make sure that we do better business with them, that we provide our clients with good data quality, and that can only be achieved if we are able to engage our participants in research. So I'm going to go into all three challenges one at a time, but I will start off with saying that definitely Gen Yers don't like one-way communication, which also means that that 15-minute survey is probably not on their top priority list when they have 15 minutes of time to do something. So what can we do to bypass this issue? How can we turn this around? Well, there are different options. One of them is, for instance, to stop doing research where we ask questions, but to just listen. And that is something that we do, for instance, via social media monitoring. However, what we heard already from Joeri is that Gen Y is a generation that feels empowered, which also means that they are marketing savvy and that they want to co-create with the brands they love. So in fact, we can do much better than just telling them to shut up and buy our products or telling them to shut up and fill our surveys. And we can do this in different ways. One of them is to empower them as marketeers. And we do this specifically through one of our products. Here you see a couple of examples of these products. We use what we call online research communities or consumer consulting boards, where a group of 50 to 150 participants is gathered in a closed online platform and is asked to structurally collaborate with a brand over a certain period of time. So they can talk to each other, but they can also talk to the brand team via daily moderation tasks. Another way that we do this is by not asking them to be marketeers, but researchers. And to bring this to life a bit, I'll give you an example of a project we recently did with Smirnoff. What you see here is Smirnoff's US Facebook fan page, and a little bit to the right you see how many fans they have. They have a whopping 1.3 million fans of this fan page. So in fact, what the team at Diageo said was, well, it's great that we have so many fans, but what about quality? How can we truly engage with our fans? What are themes that we share with them that they really really inspire them and that connect them to Smirnoff? So instead of only giving Smirnoff answers to that from our own research, we basically also ask research participants to go on missions and to seek out examples of digital strategies that they found inspiring and that they felt connected them with the brand. Another big challenge, as we saw, was to be where our participants are. When it comes to millennials being connected, I think we all know by the drill, there is no offline anymore, basically, because 75% of millennials say they're never disconnected for more than an hour a day. Of course, being an online agency really helps, so our lives are already a lot easier than the lives of anyone who is in telephone research or who has to track millennials down in the middle of Central Park, for example. But we need to do more than that. We need to make sure that we find the right online channels to reach out to them. So this means that project by project, we need to put effort into finding these platforms. Here are some examples. So for instance, on the left, you see the image of a smartphone, which basically is able to support our community platform, investing a lot in mobile research. What we also do is integrate our platforms with touch points that Gen Yers are already very accustomed to. On the right-hand side, you see an example of another project we do in this J&B brand, where we embedded our research community directly into Facebook, which of course also boosted participation, but which also gave participants the chance of being in an environment that they're already very, very accustomed to. Talking about engagement, that is in fact our third challenge. So our approach to consumer engagement has changed compared to the past. We don't want to directly necessarily only pay for engagement anymore. We want to invest those dollars in making research a fun experience for them. Play for engagement. So this in fact brings us to very big buzzwords in the market research world recently, which is gamification, using game mechanics to solve problems and engage users, which sounds pretty complicated, but it's actually a very simple concept. If you think of any games you played, as long as you had fun playing these games, you could learn something from it. So how do we translate that into research? On a quantitative level, for instance, what we did is run a Gen Y survey with a Belgian insurance company. In the advertising world, especially here in the US, we've seen a lot of cases of ways in which advertising really engages consumers within insurance companies. Just think of Geico, for instance. So we kind of wanted to create engagement through research. Here are a couple of examples. What you see on the lower left-hand side is the interface of the survey itself. What we did here was, instead of giving them a linear survey to fill out, we gave them this, let's say, homepage with several buttons that they could click, and each one linked through to a different part of the survey. This basically gave them control over their own fate. They could decide when to answer what, which gives them a sense of empowerment. Another thing we did, and that's on the top right-hand side, is we shared our results with them in real time. So basically, after participants answered a question, a chart popped up which showed them what their peers had answered before them. So they could, in fact, compare their answers with that of peers. If you think about it, this is the kind of approach that video games use as well. That's what we do on a quantitative level. There are examples from a qualitative level perspective as well. If you think of our Heinz case, we did a Heinz community in different European countries, and in order for us to answer the research questions that Heinz had, we needed to ask our participants to engage in relatively repetitive tasks. So we thought, how can we make this more engaging for them? So we basically hid a lot of clues throughout the community, and participants needed to collect these clues in order to answer a final question at the end of the community, which allowed them to win an extra prize. So of course, this was a fun experience for consumers. They were really engaged, but it also led to more valuable insights for Heinz. Ultimately, How? Well, this game actually brought people together. They started talking about it. They started feeling more familiar with each other. So they were also more open in discussing the research questions themselves. So to quickly summarize what we've seen, we share 3 important challenges with anyone who tries to connect with Gen Y consumers. And what we learned in our research industry can be useful, in fact, to anyone branding to Generation Y. So when it comes to becoming more relevant, it's in fact all about empowering Gen Y and fostering collaboration. When it comes to making sure you are where they are, it's about making sure that your touch points are aligned, that you provide them with a seamless experience, and that you are present in a consistent way wherever you are present. And then it's also about engagement, so using gamification techniques to get more and better input in research methods. That's it from my part. I'll hand the mic back over to Joeri, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions after Joeri did. Thank you for listening.
Thanks a lot, Giulia, and we do apologize for the audio problems. I didn't get that many questions of you, but I had some of Pim, so thank you very much, Pim. One of the questions was really an interesting one because it's actually the first time that someone asked me this question, and it seems like an obvious question if you're working in marketing and studied Kotler. So Pim's question was, what's the effect of crush on the 4 Ps of Kotler, actually, on the 4 Ps of the traditional Ps of marketing, you could say? I would quickly try to summarize this. I think on the product aspects, like I said, we need to surprise the simulation junkies, which means that the pace of innovation has actually dramatically increased. And Forever 21 was one cool example of how you have to change your product on a daily basis. For most companies, it will be hard to do that on a daily basis, but at least they should rethink their innovation pace. Because, well, you will simply lose the interest, even if you're a cool brand of millennials, if you're not playing with your brand and your packaging, still keeping true to your own DNA, to yourself, but offering like limited editions, specific campaigns or activations you do, surprise them all the time. Campaigns or activations is, of course, the P of promotion, but on the product level, it means you have to give more variety quickly and offer novelties at a faster pace than we used to do in previous ages or for other target groups. So that would be my conclusion on the product aspect. On the price aspect, that has changed as well. If you compare it to Generation X, Gen Y thinks it's really cool to be smart. So if you buy cheaper, you're more smart, which means you're more cool. And if you talk to, for instance, H&M or Forever 21, they would say, well, people are actually quite confident in using our yellow-colored bags when they just went shopping at Forever 21. I think it's rather cool to show to other millennials that they were smart. Whereas a Gen Xer, they also went to fashion discounters, but they would hide their bag of the fashion discounter inside a bag of a more expensive store because they were ashamed that they bought something cheap. So today it's actually smart, and all group buying mechanisms, whether it's Groupon or other mechanisms, it's all about showing to others that you're smart and buying cheap as well. And that's quite a challenge for many companies, especially A brands, that want to defend their price premium. It's not so easy. I think the key there is the self-identification, because self-identification is really the core of most marketing strategies to millennials. So if you focus on how is your brand closer to this millennial consumer, how is it more linked to their lifestyle, how do you understand their passions more and are facilitating these passions more than cheaper brands, you actually have the key to make people to buy you even if you have a price premium. So that's the price aspect. And I'm just giving some answers here on the short notice and on a few minutes. On the promotional level, the P of promotion, well, I think it's clear that the top-down talks, and Pim mentioned the fact that perhaps celebrities won't work as well as they did before. That's true, Pim. Top-down commercials, advertising, that's not working anymore. I mean, celebrities, they are still okay if they are close to me as a fan. And you see that many, if you look at, for instance, music artists, many music artists claim that they're very close to their fans. I mean, Lady Gaga, it's all about her monsters. She's really almost doing her job because of her fans, and that's why she's popular. Green Day, for instance, on stage asks people to come on the stage and play the guitar during their gig, even if they cannot even play guitar well, they're still asking their fans to join them. So it's all about being very close to your fans, and the same goes for brands, of course. So promotion today, it's all about getting people closer to you, self-identification again, but also engaging them into sharing their thoughts with you, into actually being involved in the marketing of your brand, because that will create conversations. Millennials like to be involved, they like to be in charge. If you allow them to play with your brand, if they're fans, they will start a conversation about this. And I think that's the key to the promotional aspect, the openness and transparency. Didn't have the time to think of the P of the place, distribution, but one of the things about distribution is, of course, that there is many more touch points than compared to 15 years ago, and every touch point is important to millennials. So every buying occasion, whether it's in the tube station, metro station, or whatever, is a good place to sell your product. There's many more opportunities than there used to be like 10 years ago. So it's all about being everywhere, finding the right touch points. It's also related to the story that Giulia told you. Finding the hideouts, the places where they are, is more important than it used to be 10 to 15 years ago, which explains, especially fast-moving consumer goods, that the out-of-home distribution has become much more important than it used to be, also because of the competition, of course, of private labels within the traditional retail. So I think distribution has changed as well, and I mean, it's more important to look at other places than the traditional distribution. I hope that's an answer to your question, Pim. You still had another question. You're really getting value for your money here. It was on how can universities use Crush? How can they become cool? I think one basic point about education is that it plays a major role in the rest of the life of your students. And it comes back to the happiness chapter, actually, that they want to achieve something. So if you challenge them as a university to be part of your own university challenge, for instance, to solve some case studies online, some contests you're playing online with them, that will touch up with their interest in being challenged. And well, it's actually part of the education to achieve something. So it's very much in line with your own product, with your own DNA. Another thing, and it's something you mentioned yourself, it's co-creation. Giving more power to them than before. That's not just the professor that's defining everything, but actually allowing them to define the type of courses they get, to get closer to the professors, is quite important. Not only defining their own schedules and the timing that they want to have their examinations, but also the content of the courses. And then the last aspect would be stimulation junkiness again, being innovative. How are you different compared to your competitors in the same industry? It can be the type of education, like for instance, put more focus on guest speakers, practitioners. That's different than my competitors. Can be technology also. We're allowing our students to have just one iPad with all their course material, etc., etc. How are you different compared to your competitors? So that was your second question. If there are any more questions, I think the time schedule, we still have 10 minutes. Also for questions to Giulia. Any more questions? I see Pim has another one. Crush in business to business marketing. Again, you surprised me with the 4P question, Pim, but business to business marketing is also a question I get a lot. The model is basically based on consumers. On the other hand, I do think that in business to business situations, you're also dealing with humans. So humans also want to have authentic, credible suppliers. They also want to identify with you as a supplier. So I think Crush, they also want to feel good when they are working with you. So I think Crush would even work in business to business situations, although it's based on consumer research, I must admit. I hope that's an answer to your question as well. Any other people have any more questions? Any questions for Giulia? No? Then I think it's time to have a roundup. If you're interested in our type of content, InSites Consulting is positioned as a knowledge company. We like to share our knowledge as well. That's why we do this kind of seminars. But we also have what we call Smartees. Smartees is a series of offline and online events. Also offline, we have an office in New York, close to Madison Avenue, where we do some events as well, and also in other places around the world. And we do online webinars from time to time, like this one. And you can find more information on this if you go to Smartees, that's SMARTES.insites-consulting.com. You can see this on your screen if you're still here as well. So go to this website, you will find more information on the content we would like to share with you for free in the following months. And I would like to thank you a lot to be part of this webinar tonight. Well, tonight for me here. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will send you some satisfaction survey, of course. We're a research company to see what your thoughts were about the webinar. So thanks a lot again for showing up, for your attendance. It was great meeting you all here virtually, and I wish you a nice continuation of the day. Thanks again. Bye-bye.